following video is not made for kids. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello to my subscribers, this is the TFNG coming to you with what will hopefully be a successful review. And this review is going to be a long one, heads up to that. And because tonight we're going to be taking a look at one of the largest Transformers figures that I purchased. I actually got this 1.5 years ago during the spring of 2021. And this is a Transformers figure that I got this because it's a repaint of another Transformers figure I've already reviewed on my channel that I didn't think I was going to own. So without further delay, let's get into this, and tonight we're going to be taking a look at the Takara Tomy exclusive Transformers Generations Selects God Neptune Combiner. A repaint of the Takara Tomy exclusive Generations Selects Piranacon or King Poseidon Combiner. God Neptune is a Takara Tomy exclusive released in the Generations Selects line, so there's the Transformers Generations logo. And yeah, this is the outer box that the Seacons come packaged in. And if you'll excuse me, I'll be right back while I get the inner box out. Alright, so here's the inner box for the God Neptune Seacons. You got the Transformers Generations logo, you got God Neptune Transformers right here in big white letters on the box. On the top of the box, you got the Takara's version of the Transformers Generation Selects logo. God Neptune's name again. Takara Tomy's name up there. Hasbro's logo is nowhere to be found on this because, again, this is Takara Tomy. Tomy here. Right here in the back of the box, you got a huge image of the Predacon faction symbol from the Transformers Beast era. So, before we actually get them out of the box, I'll have to take out of them a brief history about God Neptune. So, in 1998, 10 years after Hasbro and Takara Tomy released the Piranacon Seacons and the Transformers Generation 1 line, Takara Tomy decided to repaint 5 of the 6 Seacons into a new Seacon combiner that they named God Neptune, which was featured in, I believe it was Transformers Beast Wars Neo, was the cartoon series that it was featured in. And essentially, God Neptune was an entirely brand new combiner who happened to have the same team name and have team members who were repaints of the previous Seacon combiner of Piranacon. And in Japan, Takara Tomy treated God Neptune and Piranacon as different combiners. The same. So essentially, God Neptune and Piranacon were just like Starscream, Thundercracker, and Skywarp, different Transformers that look exactly alike, but the main difference between the Seekers and the two teams of Seacons is that they're whole combiners, and so that's the idea here with God Neptune. Now, unlike Piranacon, who had 6 teammates, God Neptune only has 5, and Takara Tomy decided that one of the 6 Seacons, which was Nautilator here, who transforms from robot into a lobster, Takara Tomy decided for whatever reason not to include Nautilator with the God Neptune Seacon, so that's one of the reasons why there's only 5 members of God Neptune, and Piranacon has up to 6 members. And the Seacons, from a handful of footage I've seen, the God Neptune Seacons, they weren't quite as a fearsome threat to the Maximals in Transformers Beast Wars Neo, but for what they were, being a combiner, they did the job of being fearsome enemies nonetheless. And of course, one of the main differences between Piranacon and God Neptune is that Piranacon is a Decepticon, while God Neptune is a Seacon. And you get 5 Seacons here, as I said before. You've got the team leader, who's a repaint of Snaptrap. His name is Halfshell. Then you've got Sealagon, who's mold mates with Scalar. You've got Sea Phantom, who's mold mates with Overbite. You've got Terramander, almost forgot his name. Terramander, who's mold mates with Seawing. And then the most unique member of Team God Neptune is the character who's mold mates with Tentakill, and this character's name is Skilla. And what makes Skilla not only unique compared to Tentakill, but unique compared to the Seacons, not only in who are teammates who form God Neptune, but also the Seacons who combine to form Piranacon. What makes Scylla unique is that Scylla here is, in fact, a female Transformers character. That's right, she is a female Transformers character, and out of all the Seacons here in the God Neptune set, Scylla is the only one that has newly sculpted parts, so acknowledging the fact that Scylla is not a straight-up repaint of Tentakill, and that unlike Tentakill here, Scylla is a female Transformers character. All totaled, as far as body types go, there are actually up to 7 different Seacons that are out there. So you've got both the male and female versions of the squid, and you've got the a turtle, shark, arcs, manta ray, you've got lobsters, and of course the coelacanth, which is what Coelagon and Scalar are transforming into. And when the time came for the God Neptune Seacons to be added to the roster of Transformers characters here in the United States, unlike Takara Tomy, who treated both teams of Seacons as separate combiner teams, Hasbro decided within Transformers fiction to make up a story in the Transformers comic books that were released by the Transformers Collectors Club, which unfortunately no longer exists, and also through BotCon, which were released by Fun Publications. And Hasbro decided here in the United States that God Neptune is in fact the upgraded version of Piranacon. And to explain the different teammates, Hasbro came up with a fairly decent comic book story explaining that when the Piranacon Seacons ended up fighting their enemies, fighting the Autobots and also the Maximals, Nautilator and Tentakill were completely destroyed. They were obliterated, leaving only 4 members of the Seacons, and the Decepticons ended up stealing an Autobot protoform mold, which, unknown to the Decepticons and Predacons when they stole the protoform mold, that it was programmed to become a female Transformers character. They used Tentakill's body type. I fused it with the protoform, and the result was Scylla became the single replacement for both Tentakill and Nautilator, and the other Seacons were ordered to take on color schemes that matched up with Scylla, and they changed their combiner name from Piranacon to God Neptune. So that was Hasbro's way of making God Neptune and Piranacon, making it so that there's in fact only one team of Seacons, not 2. It's all your personal preference if you want to follow Takara Tomy's treatment of the Seacons and having 2 teams and having Piranacon and God Neptune be completely separate combiners, or if you want to go the route Hasbro did and make them the same combiner team. So here's the innermost box. The black one that you saw a moment ago was actually a panel sheet that sits over this one. So opening it up, the box is so huge I can't hold it on screen, but here on the upper half of the box you've got the Transformers Generations Selects logo, which is upside down, and something just fell off. I gotta retrieve it. That's what happened. Give me a second here, please, while I take a look. Oh, good, it was just so. Hopefully none of them fall off, but here are the God Neptune Seacons inside their box before they're opened out and unwrapped. They're all packaged inside their beast modes. And of course they got the weapons and all the accessory pieces that they need, not only to function inside their individual robot modes, but to transform into God Neptune as well. So without further delay, let's take a look one by one at all of the Econs. We will start off with the team leader, Peter Halfshell, and work our way throughout the rest of the teammates. So let's look at these guys. Since these guys are packaged in beast mode, we will start off in beast mode and then do size comparisons in robot mode. Alright, so for beast mode size comparisons, here is Halfshell next to Snaptrap, or Turtler as he was named by Takara Tomy, and this is going to be the same with all of the, comparing all of the God Neptune Seacons with the Piranacon ones. The only difference is the paint job, whereas the Piranacon Seacons have a predominantly turquoise, aqua blue, and with white and black and pink paint job highlights to them. The God Neptune Seacons primarily have a gray, ivory white, minty green with gold and red highlights as their paint job. So yeah, essentially the main difference is that the turquoise paint job on the turquoise paint apps on the Piranacon Seacons have been switched out with ivory white here on the God Neptune Seacons, and lowering their heads here. The only faction symbols amongst all of the Seacons are the ones here on the tops of Half Shell and Snaptrap's heads. So the Piranacon Seacons are Decepticons, while the God Neptune Seacons are Predacons. So if you wanted the God Neptune Seacons to be Decepticons like the Piranacon Seacons, then all you have to do is remove the Predacon symbol on Half Shell's head, and you can turn God Neptune into a Decepticon combiner if you desire. So yeah, here they are with all of their weapons attached. They're basically robotic turtles, and as far as which species of turtle they're supposed to be, there's no indication on the Transformers Wikipedia, but because they're so much larger than their Seacon teammates, I personally have come to the conclusion that Snaptrap and Half Shell are supposed to be Galapagos tortoises due to their huge size. So it's pretty nice seeing all the Seacons here together. Next up, we will take a look at Terramander, and here he is next to the Seacon he's repainted from, which is Sea-Wing. They are both a pair of manta rays, and again, main difference is the paint job here, and they really do look quite nice standing next to each other. Unfortunately, my table here isn't large enough for all the Seacons to be placed on top, which is why instead of doing a group shot, I'm going to just be doing them all side by side with each other. So here is Sealagon with Scalar, just so you can see how they look next to each other. Out of all the God Neptune Seacons, Sealagon is the one whose name is hardest for collectors to pronounce. A lot of collectors incorrectly pronounce his name Coelagon, but his name is supposed to be pronounced Sealagon due to the fact that he and Scalar both have for their beast mode the species of a mutated version of the species of fish that's known as the coelacanth. The coelacanth was a fish that, according to science, disappeared 65 million years ago and went extinct along with the dinosaurs, went extinct with the mosasaurs, the ammonites, and all of the aquatic life that existed 65 million years ago. But amazingly, in the year 1938, a living coelagon specimen was caught in a fisherman's net, and there's been a handful of coelacanth that have been discovered since then. So, so the coelacanth is no longer an extinct species of fish, and it's one of the most famous species of animal that's undergone the Lazarus effect, where it appeared to go extinct but appeared alive and well sometime later. Now, unlike the Piranacon Seacons, I apologize for not showing this off with Terramander and Sea-Wing, but all of the Piranacon Seacons have Decepticon logos on them, but for the God Neptune Seacons, Half Shell is the only one that has a Predacon faction symbol. The other God Neptune Seacons are factionless, so it's pretty interesting to see that. Next up, we will take a look at here is Sea Phantom, and here he is compared to Overbite. Open up his jaw so they can both be attacking each other. So yeah, I'm repeating myself at this point, but the only difference between the God Neptune and the Piranacon Seacons is the paint job, and it is enough of a paint difference that you can recognize them as being in a different Seacon on members compared to each other. But yeah, it is nice having them standing right here. I did put the blade weapons on weapons on opposite sides of them, so it looks like they're mirror images, but you put the blades on both sides, then you could joke that if you were to make these the exact same paint job, then you'd have two copies of the exact same type of Transformers figure, so that is true for all of the God Neptune Seacons, except for the last one, and that is arguably the most unique member of the God Neptune Seacons, Skilla. So as I said earlier in the review, Skilla is in fact a female Transformers character. Takara Tomy, for whatever reason, decided to make the God Neptune repaint of Tentakill a female Predacon named Skilla. And even though you can kind of sort of on the bottom of their torso see the different sculpted parts, the parts on that distinguish Skilla from Tentakill, that's actually a difference in the roll-up mode chest. That's there, so you can really notice the differences between the two of them in robot mode more than you can in squid mode, but it is nice, but it baffles me, Takara Tomy's decision to have Skilla be a female character, because this means that God Neptune is, I believe, became the first ever, and I believe is the only Combiner Transformers team that has at least one female member on what would otherwise be an all-male Combiner team, so yeah, that is a pretty questionable decision, I believe, on Takara Tomy's part to have Skilla be a female character. But on that note, in the Transformers Beast Wars Neo cartoon, in part due to the fact that she's a female Transformers character, one of the running gags with the God Neptune Seacons is that Skilla constantly wants to separate from the rest of the Seacons, even when they're in combined mode and they're all transformed into God Neptune. Skilla just kind of wants to run off and do whatever she wants, and so sometimes God Neptune is in battle with only 3 limbs instead of 4. And what makes it somewhat funny is that just like Tentakill, Skilla transforms into one of God Neptune's legs, so whenever she separates from her God Neptune Seacon teammates in combined mode, Skilla leaves God Neptune with just one leg to stand on, so that's pretty funny to see there. I need to know that happens with Skilla. And I just wanted to point out that before we move on to robot mode, Nautilator here is the only member of the Piranacon Seacons who is not repainted into the God Neptune Seacons. The real life reason why that is because when repainting Piranacon into God Neptune, Takara Tomy decided that there was only a need to have 5 of the Seacons repainted into God Neptune, not have all 6, and it's due to the 6th member acting as a target master that a lot of collectors, even in Japan, said it didn't really work out that great. So Takara Tomy looked at the 6 Seacon on figures that were created for Piranacon, or King Poseidon as he was named in Japan, and the decision was to have Lobhammer be this one Seacon who would not be repainted into God Neptune. And within Transformers fiction, there was no real explanation given as to why Nautilator wasn't repainted into one of the God Neptune Seacons as well. But nearly 20 years after the God Neptune Seacons were created and introduced, Takara Tomy gave an in-fiction story explaining why Nautilator was absent from God Neptune, and reason why is because shortly after upgrading into God Neptune, Nautilator did also undergo the upgrade and did have the God Neptune paint job as well. In Japan, Takara Tomy gave Nautilator the name Lobclaw, and so when he upgraded into the God Neptune Seacons, he changed his name from Lobclaw to Lobhammer, and even though this is what I'm about to say isn't entirely accurate, so please don't quote me on it, but in a pack-in comic book that was sold with some of the Transformers figures that were released exclusively by Takara Tomy, within fiction, the story of what happened to Nautilator was that he upgraded into a teammate of God Neptune, changed his name to Lobhammer, and God Neptune ended up fighting a powerful opponent, which was in fact Shattered Glass Optimus Prime, who was sent from throughout the multiverse to try and destroy every Decepticon and Predacon he came across. And Shattered Glass Optimus Prime beat the tarnation out of God Neptune, and when the fight was over Lobhammer, was murdered by Shattered Glass Optimus Prime, and after he murdered Nautilator, or Lobhammer as he had changed his name, and Shattered Glass Optimus Prime basically took his lifeless body and took it away so that the Seacons would never have any chance of having 6 teammates ever again. And after that, the Seacons' ranks were permanently reduced to 5 teammates instead of just 6. So within fictional storylines, that's the reason why God Neptune only has 5 teammates instead of 6. And that's why Lobhammer didn't have was absent from the God Neptune Seacons. And I just want to share that with you guys. That said, I will do a second part of God Neptune's review because I did buy a duplicate copy of Nautilator and I repainted it into Lobhammer, so I will go over that in part 2. Alright, for some robot mode size comparisons, here is Half Shell with Snaptrap. And again, the only difference between the two of them is the paint jobs. And again, Snaptrap is the only member of the God Neptune Seacons who has an actual faction logo. So yeah, it's pretty neat seeing them both standing beside each other. One key difference that some might say is lacking is that here on Piranacon, on the blades of Snaptrap Shield, which become the blades of Piranacon's Royal chests, they're chrome silver on Piranacon, whereas on God Neptune they're actually just gold, same gold used on the other highlights. But again, it's all depends on your taste of which colors you like seeing more. It is unfortunately difficult to get both Snaptrap and Half Shell to stand up in robot mode, and that's even true with Piranacon and God Neptune in combined form, because there's so many articulated joints here in the combiner feet. Even at a slight notice, as you just saw, these figures can't fall all down. And that's true for both Piranacon and God Neptune as well. So, unfortunately, that's one thing that the Seacons are unable to do successfully, is stand on their own feet. So, jokes aside, that's pretty much the main gripe I have with them. I apologize, I will not be going into articulation. I kind of briefly touched on it in my reviews of the Piranacon Seacons, but it's because the video's already gone on much longer than I had, and there's still a whole lot more to cover, so I apologize for not showing off the articulation. But if you have any of the Transformers figures from either the Combiner Wars or the Power of the Primes lines, then you pretty much have a decent idea of the articulation here for the Seacons, especially if you have Power of the Primes Abominants, because the Seacons here most of them are repaints of figures that were originally used for the Power of the Primes Dinobots. And I just barely knocked my table with my foot, and that caused these figures to fall over. So the one exception being Tentakill and also Skilla, whose mold was originally used for Power of the Primes Moonracer. But yeah, if you have the Power of the Primes versions of the Dinobots, then you got the idea of what the articulation is like for the Seacons here. Alright, and here is Terramander next to Seawing. And again, if you want to distinguish them from each other, you can have them holding their weapons in opposite hands from each other. Although, depending on how you position them, having them holding weapons in opposite hands does make them mirror images of each other, despite the different paint jobs. And again, just like with Half Shell and Snaptrap, this is the same with all the Seacons except for Tentakill and Skilla, where the God Neptune Seacons are straight up repaints of their Piranacon counterparts. So yeah, there's Sea Wing next to Terramander. And one last thing before we go on to the next Seacons. The combiner hands that all came with the Piranacon Seacons are done in black plastic, and on God Neptune they're all metallic minty green. So that's just a nice color distinction there. Here is Scalar next to Zelagon, and again, really impressed with the distinction on the paint job between both sets of Seacons here. And yeah, I'm really amazed at the metallic silver that's used here on the God Neptune Seacons. Here on Zelagon, it's a very nice, bright, vibrant silver there. Here, so yeah, really impressive looking. Here are Sea Phantom and Overbite. And again, I really love the for me personally, the ivory white and mint green paint job of the God Neptune Seacons is a lot more eye-catching than the mostly turquoise paint job of the Piranacon Seacons. So yeah, there's Overbite and Sea Phantom. And last but definitely by no means least, we have the Seacon, who is the most unique in the God Neptune set. And so here for a size comparison is Scylla next to Tentakill. So yes, as I said earlier in the video review, Scylla is the only member of the God Neptune Seacons who is a female character, and out of all the Seacons, in fact, not just God Neptune, but the Piranacon Seacons as well, Scylla is the only female Seacon member, so take away what you will about the fact that God Neptune is a combined form of 4 male Transformers and 1 female Transformer. But yeah, there's Scylla, and like I said, out of all the God Neptune Seacons, Scylla is the only one that has new sculpted parts. I believe her the upper arms of her robot mode, chest, her head, and her legs are all retooled parts to distinguish her from Tentakill. And for those of you who have been collecting Transformers for a long time, I'm looking at Scylla, you might think, why does she look familiar to me? And I mentioned this in my review of Tentakill, but this mold was originally used on Power the Prime's Moonracer, so seeing it used for a fembot makes it come full circle. So yeah, I am really thrilled seeing the newly sculpted parts here that distinguish Scylla from Tentakill. So because of those retooled arts on Scylla, making her a female character, technically there are up to 7 different Seacon body types. You've got the male and female versions of the squids, and then of course you've got the other Seacons as well, now that we've mentioned. But yeah, out of all the God Neptune Seacons, it's Scylla here who's the most unique out of all of them. And I just really enjoy how the difference of just a few sculpted parts can give you both a male and female Transformers character from the same sculpt. Some of my other upcoming Transformers reviews, we're going to be taking a look at male and female Transformers characters who share the same mold as Tentakill and Scylla do here. There's other Transformers characters who are both male and female Transformers that share the same body type that don't have as much distinction between them as Scylla and Tentakill do, but I still think it's a neat idea. Now, one thing I will touch on before we get into the combined mode is that I had mentioned in my review of Tentakill, because the person I got Tentakill from off of eBay had said that this part of Tentakill was broken, and that's why one of his legs in squid mode pops off easily. But Scylla, fresh out of the box, she is sculpted this very same way, where it looks like a part of it chipped off, and I'm realizing now that it's actually not chipped off. It's supposed to be like that because the base of it, I'll show it off here with Tentakill, but the reason why it looks part of the peg that keeps the leg for squid mode, the reason why it looks like it's been broken off is because it's sculpted to make room for, whoops, Tentakill wants to flop around since I grabbed it by the arm, but it's designed to look that way on purpose because it has, the base of it is a hole for a screw. So it is unfortunate. So I think the main reason why on my copy of copy of Tentakill that the reason why the leg keeps popping off isn't that a piece broke off, it's that the peg that it's attached to is pinched inward and warped slightly, so I'm afraid of fixing it due to how rare of a figure Tentakill is. But yeah, I just wanted to point out that I had mentioned in my review of Tentakill that he was the person who I got him from on eBay had said that he had a part of him that was chipped off, but I can confirm looking at Skilla fresh out of the box that no, that's the way the mold is supposed to be. So Tentakill is not broken, he just has a leg that pops off easily. Skilla's leg on that one sprue that's slightly loose, it doesn't feel like it's going to come off, but I do notice that it is sticking outward slightly from the other leg, so that's just one thing to be mindful with this mold. So now that we've looked at all of these Seacons in their roll-up mode and their beast modes, we will now take a look at them in their combined modes and wrap up the review. And I apologize for not showing off the God Neptune Seacons in all of the deluxe-sized ones in all three of their modes, arm mode, leg mode, and target master mode. I show that off in my review of the Piranacon Seacons, so if you want to get a vague idea of what the God Neptune Seacons look like in all three of their modes, then please go watch my reviews of the Piranacon Seacons. Alright, so here is God Neptune in combined mode. Here he is next to Piranacon. And as you can see, they're both such massive combiners, it's hard for me to get them both on full screen. So I'm actually having to move it backwards farther to get it fitting on camera. So yes, weapons are all the same. You can mix and match them to further distinguish God Neptune from Piranacon if you desire. His main weapons are the Trident and the laser cannon made from the combined laser guns of the Seacons that combine to form him. And again, because God Neptune only has 5 teammates, not 6, he doesn't have what Piranacon has, in which a 6-member teammate forms a large target master weapon. And unfortunately, the arm joints on God Neptune and Piranacon, they're the same as they were on the Combiner Wars and Power of the Primes combiners, where it's actually the both thighs of the limb bots that actually make the elbow joint for the combiners. And God Neptune and Piranacon's weapons are so massive that the arm joints can't really hold them up anymore, so they can't hold them up at all is the word I was actually trying to use. So it is best if you actually just let the weapons fall to the ground and you have them act as canes to help Piranacon and God Neptune stand up. In combined mode, God Neptune again, because it doesn't have, you don't get Nautilator with the God Neptune sets. You've got Sealagon and Sea Phantom forming the arms, and then for the legs you've got Skilla and Terramander forming God Neptune's legs and eggs. And pretty much the only Seacons that end up in the same spot on both the limbots for both God Neptune and Piranacon, the only ones that end up in the same spot are in fact Tentakill and Skilla. And unfortunately, just like Tentakill, because Skilla, same as Tentakill, because most of her parts in leg mode depend on friction to hold in place. She wants to fall apart easily. And the new sculpted parts on Skilla, unfortunately, in combined leg mode, there's even less friction there than there is on Tentakill. So if you try and get both God Neptune as well, just like Piranacon, if you try and get him into a action pose, then you're going to have very difficult time doing so due to how the loose some joints are and other joints depending on friction to work properly rather than actual connection pegs. And yes, that's pretty much it. I did touch earlier in the review that Nautilator was left out of the God Neptune Seacons, but I posted a photo on my channel several weeks ago that I did buy a duplicate copy. So in the final look at God Neptune, I will bring out my custom Nautilator figure done in the God Neptune colors. It's nothing special, but I'm looking forward to getting that review completed to see what God Neptune looks like having a 6-team member combined with him. So until next time, you guys, this has been the TFN Geek. and Geek, and I hope you have enjoyed this review of the Transformers Takara Tomy exclusive Generation Selects God Neptune Seacons. And until next time, you guys, stay safe, stay healthy, transform and roll out. This has been a real CE adventure of a review. Goodbye, everyone.